Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, excuse me. Good evening. Today, I've noticed that there's been a theme going around of vampirism. Vampirism being used as a metaphor to explain the exploitation that foundational Black Americans face. This theme, although very popular right now, is not real new. I have to give our brother Mark Carter some credit because he called he called you know what I'm about to say. He called uh traitors within our midst nigga vampires. Um but peace out to Mark Carter. But the question is, are immigrants vampires? Are they? And secondly, have religions been ethnically branded for control? So, where do we start? Let's start backwards today. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to be popular, but it's truthful. Um, then first of all, let me give a disclaimer. I'm not no disrespect to anybody's religion. I do believe in a creator, so I'm not going off of an atheist tip. But I want to address some facts. Facts. Hell, where do we begin? So, if we want to start in the beginning, the ancient Kemetic people were spiritually in tuned with the Creator. Now, I have scholarship to prove that. But before the ancient Kemites, there's an older story. Did y'all know that? It's an older story. The Kemetic people are said to have learned what they learned from somebody named Thoth, the Atlantean. Now, the Europeans doing that name game and verbal warfare and renamed Thoth Hermes. So we know of them in Western academia as Hermes, the Hermetic code, that stuff. Well, who was Hermes? God, that's a good question. Hermes was said to be one of the seven sages. So, um, a long friggin' time ago, it was said that the world, the what we call Earth, was a hyper advanced civilization. Now, I'm talking about before Egyptians, before the pyramids. It was a hyper advanced civilizations. Um, I'm talking starships. I'm talking lasers. I'm talking about hyper advanced weaponry. Well, there were two groups of people. It was the Atlanteans and the Lemurians. Rudolf Steiner wrote a book called Atlantis and Lemuria. If you can find it, get it. Now, during this hyper advanced civilization, it was said that the mankind lived in perfect harmony with the God one. I like saying that, the God one, the one true God, the all. And by being hyper in tune with the all, they were given access to super advanced information. I know a lot of y'all gonna call bullshit on this, but I got some scholarship to back this up, which is very strange. It's gonna make sense. Well, what happened to this hyper advanced civilization? This hyper advanced civilization was broken up into two groups. One, the Atlanteans, Atlantis, which was a civilization, and two, Lemuria or Mu. You can look that up. Well, as it goes, the Atlanteans were approached by the Brotherhood of why can't I remember that one? What was it called? The brother.
Set, set Taiwan.
It wasn't the Brotherhood of Set. It's almost
What
like
was that other one? You mean the Anunnaki knockoffs?
no. The Brotherhood of
I can't
God.
remember these people.
I can't remember the name, but they're approached by. It's almost sounded like Set, but they were approached by an outside group that promised them power and individualization. So information began to whatever information that this brotherhood gave the Atlanteans corrupted them, and the Atlanteans went around the planet conquering and corrupting um, other groups. Now the Lemurians
You
objected
mean
to.
after they got this information?
Yeah, and
Are they playing around with demons again?
I think
Every
that
time you summon demons, you end up raping children and running around taking people's stuff.
yeah, I'm pissed off that I can't remember the name. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not written down in a book. When I tell you where it came from, it's gonna blow all of your minds. Well, we all know, and our sister Wani Spots has brought to our attention in several spaces that a lot of evil, from psychology, drugs to different lifestyles and options, or death style options, should I say, um, go back to Germany. Well, there was a guy named what was the psychic's name again? The clairvoyant guy.
Oh, forget. You know,
What is
you
going on with
know.
brains today?
I
Uh,
know who this
Edward
is.
Casey.
Right.
Case Edward Casey. So I had a long day, y'all. Y'all forgive me for being a little hazy, but okay. So listen to this. There was a guy. So much information. I don't know how to sort it out. But there was a guy named Edward Casey in Kentucky. I think he was in Kentucky. But anyway, white guy, poor, who had an experience where, as a child, he met with some entities, and they told him, they gave him information. Well, in long story short, um, Edgar Casey um, developed a talent. He was called the sleeping prophet. Y'all can Google this. Well, Edgar Casey would was able to go into a trance-like state and access this collective unconscious, like access the library of infinite information. Sounds like bullshit until he met somebody who was dying of a terminal disease, and he told her to take this, take that, go take this route, and she was cured. She spread the word. Word spread like wildfire, and people from all over the country first, then the world, start flying to Kentucky to see this guy, where he would sit on a couch, go into a trance-like state, and tell them about loved ones who passed, and tell them about how to fix their issues. Well, listen at this shit, ladies and gentlemen. Word of this got to Germany. Here goes Germany again. And Sigmund Freud got on a plane, flew to see Edgar Casey, put him on a couch, put him in his trance-like state. Y'all know what Sigmund Freud asked him? He said, "What happened to Atlantis?" And in great detail, Edgar Cayce told him what I just told you: an advanced civilization with spacecraft that were powered by crystals. He said they were corrupted by that brotherhood. I'm going to look up the name in a moment, but they were corrupted by a brotherhood that strikingly kind of sounds like the devil. But back to the point at hand. Um, the Atlanteans got in a war with Lemuria, and the world was destroyed. So, um, according to Edgar Cayce, that young Andreas, that Ice Age event, was triggered by hyper advanced weaponry that just fucking destroyed, that were so powerful, more powerful than nuclear weapons. It changed the Earth to a point where the Earth went into an ice age to heal herself. Well, when Atlantis and Lemuria went to their battle and wiped out damn near everybody, there were seven sages, seven members of leadership from Atlantis, who had a meeting, had a council, where they decided that their job, so long as they live, is to go their separate ways and rebuild civilization. The entity we know as Thoth or Hermes, went to Egypt and helped the Egyptians rebuild their society. Now there's another hyper advanced civilization that we know of in where? In Mayan civilization in South America. Where did those pyramids come from? Another one of the seven sages was Quetzalcoatl. So is this true? I don't know. This is myth, but some people say myth is more reliable than history. Well, back to religion. Religion was corrupted. The spiritual system that is now known as Christianity was, I don't know if it had a name back in the day, but the Egyptians, uh, we refer to it as a Memphite theology, with Aset, Asar, Haru. Aset meaning a woman, the spiritual aspect of God. Asar or Osiris being the masculine aspect of God. And Heru being the son, Father, Son. We say Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Well, let me try to shorten this before I babble on, although I know this is very interesting. What happened to that? How was that religious system ethnically branded? It was ethnically branded when Egypt fell because outsiders, immigrants, um, Western Asians Western Asian men moved into Kemet, on the outskirts of the city, and they start begging the Egyptians to help them. They needed jobs. The Egyptians gave them jobs, and over time, the Egyptian Pharisees felt sorry for these Asiatic men, and gave them a women. They said every man needs a woman, so they gave them jet black women to procreate with and have a wife. And in 200 years, mixed race children who said we are not black started a civil war, and Egypt was start to fall. Well, during this fall, Alexander the Great, I'm gonna say that just for the sake of history, but I don't think that bastard was great, and his raccoon leader, Cletus Nagra, saw this as an opportunity to raid Egypt and find out the information and take over Egypt. So Alexander the Great took this opportunity to take over Egypt, and he went through there cutting off heads until once he took over the library, which is known as the Library of Alexandria. God knows what it was called before then. He named it after himself. Those books were taken and stolen by Alexander. He gave them to his secretary, known as Aristotle. You heard of him, where they were rewritten in the name of Aristotle, as if Europeans developed that information, which they didn't. Well, back to religion. Alexander the Great got drunk. He was an alcoholic one day, and start bragging on how bold and tough he was. He was never tough. Cletus Nagra, which means Cletus the Black, his black general, would save his ass um, um, most of the time. And Cletus Nagra reminded him in front of the generals that if it wasn't for me, you would have been dead long ago. Long ago, you're not a warrior; you're a diplomat. Alexander, in his drunken state, took a dagger off his hip and threw it at Cletus, trying to kill him. And Cletus looked at the daggers like, this motherfucker really tried to kill me? Okay. Cletus Naga got up, took his sword, and stabbed Alexander the Great to death in front of everybody. Now, it's important to know the leadership structure. Alexander was the head, he was a leader. Cletus Naga was second in command. And below Cletus Naga was a very weak general named Ptolemy I, it's spelled Ptolemy. Ptolemy I Lagi, who was very insecure. He wanted to be called Sotar, which means savior. Well, when Cletus Naga killed Alexander the Great, of course, Alexander's men killed Cletus Naga, leaving Ptolemy I Lagi in control of that movement. Ptolemy Lagi ordained himself a pharaoh, but that wasn't good enough for Ptolemy I Lagi. Ptolemy I Lagi saw the spiritual system in Kemet, which would later turn into Christianity, or it's called Charastianity. Charas means the bearer of gift, the bringer of gifts. Well, Ptolemy I Lagi went from church to church, saying you need to remake the likeness of God in my likeness. Why? Because Asar or Osiris was a black man. Matter of fact, if you type God of the perfect black, you'll have Osiris. You see, black used to be white. Everything's backwards now. Well, he didn't like that, and he wanted to be. Since he wanted to be God, he went to Coptic Egyptian priest after Coptic Egyptian priest saying, "Make God in my likeness," and most of them refused. When they refused, he would kill them. He did this until he found one person, one Coptic Egyptian, Uncle Tom, according to Dr. Walt Williams, who said, okay, just don't kill me. I will make the likeness of God to look like you. So he changed the image of God to look just like Ptolemy I Lagi, white man, long, sharp features, long, stringy hair. And then he was killed, go figure. Well, Ptolemy I Lagi had a problem. God, the understanding of God, the God one, was in the Holy Trinity. God had a feminine aspect, a masculine aspect, and a new birth aspect, a son, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, or Asar, Aset, Heru. Well, the problem that Ptolemy I Lagi had with Aset is Europeans have an issue with women in leadership. Y'all know this. I don't have to bore you with that. They can't handle women being in the likeness of God. So as academic canon has it, he told me when Lagi changed the likeness, the feminine likeness of God, which was Aset, into the Holy Spirit, invisible, and told me when Lagi turned the likeness of the masculine aspect of God, Asar or Osiris, invisible. You can't see God. Last but not least, told me when Lagi, who wanted to be called the Savior, changed the likeness of the sun into his likeness. Long, stringy hair, blue eyes, pointy nose, which is where you get this blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus from. A lot of people don't know that. So when you look at this blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus, you're not worshiping the Charis, you're worshiping Ptolemy one Lagi. So that long thesis I just gave y'all is to show you how Charastianity or Christianity was ethnically branded for a means of control. It was very effective. It's so effective that to this day in West Africa, and where people have beautifully melanated skin, are worshiping a white, long, stringy haired Jesus the Christ that looks nothing like them. They're not aware of it, but they're worshiping Ptolemy one Lagi, who always wanted to be called Sotar. What does that mean? Savior? Does that sound familiar? Wani, have religions been ethnically branded for control?
Yes, they have. When you look at Islam, the tribe, I guess you'll say, I think they call them a clan. The clan or tribe that takes care that are the keepers of the Kaaba, there are images of those people, and those people are in the Prophet Muhammad's tribe. And they say not to show any images of the Prophet Muhammad. Well, they don't want you to see the images of his tribe in the 1800s, but you can see the keepers of the Kaaba today, and they look very, very white. They don't even look Arab. They look white. They've been doing something to remove the melanin, and maybe we'll find out what that is. They've been doing something over time because the original people that cared for the Kaaba, they were certainly of African descent. And they have branded that religion and even made statements that a person of African descent cannot be a real Muslim. So they've made statements to make people feel like guests in that religion. Um, One thing these religions have in common is they do ethnically brand it, and they do try to make people feel like guests. So they did the same thing with Buddhism. The Buddha had a bunch of cornrows, wide nostrils, and full lips. He still does. It's this image is on all kinds of temples in stone, and they're not going to get rid of it. So we can see what he looks like, but they have decided that he's a very pale East Asian looking person and not even Indian anymore. They've just made him a sumo wrestler. That's to satisfy their need to have someone to look up to that looks like them, because they wouldn't look up to a brown skinned guy with cornrows. The same thing with Jesus. The Europeans have gone out of their way to make tons and tons of art and images to make themselves feel comfortable. Everyone wants to make themselves feel comfortable and make others feel uncomfortable. That's the name of the game. So, just like with our ethnicity, it's okay for us to feel like we're not real Americans and all of these types of things, as long as everyone else is satisfied, as long as Native Americans get labeled Native Americans. They walked across the Bering Strait as late as the 1500s, so they're not Native Americans, they're from Siberia. They're Asians from Siberia. Um, but the white boy wanted to make them feel comfortable in their skin, even though they were marginalized and 90% of them were taken out. They were given that little bit of humanity. But people don't care what happens to us, they just throw us up in the air. And so religion is the same way. Yes, we can intellectualize and say, we know that Abrahamic religions, we know that these come from melanated people. That's not even disputed. We have people that want to pretend like Jesus had blonde hair and blue eyes, but you know the region that this individual would have come from would not have produced someone that looked like that. In any way, the Jesus story is a story from another place and another time, and none of those places were Europe. They didn't even have a Europe. So um, they have ethnically branded it simply because they don't have the ability to worship or like anyone who doesn't look like them. The same reason they had race records. That's a failing on their part, that they are going to reject God. If God were to look different than what they
Well,
want, they would reject it.
Juan, if I can quickly add this,
Yeah, go ahead.
what you just said is what happened. That's what happened in ancient Kemet. Ptolemy One Lagi's weak ass. He was weak. Ptolemy One Lagi was Alexander the Great's cousin. He didn't even earn being a general. He was just along for the ride, and was a one man's loss is another man's gain. When Alexander's drunk ass challenged Cletus Nagra, Cletus Nagra probably is equatable to Shannon Sharp, like a big black dude that was real brawny and strong and could fight on the field, but wasn't thinking through stuff too correctly. No disrespect to Shannon Sharp, it's just a good analogy. Once uh Cletus Nagar said, "Fuck you," and there was some rumor that they were lovers, but I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm not judging anybody.
They always
I'm
are.
not judging anybody's lifestyle, but uh, Cletus Nagra stabbed his ass. Dr. John Henry Clark said Alexander the Great died in reproach. Reproach means, why the fuck did I just say this to Cletus Nagra? He's gonna kill me, and he stabbed his ass, poked him up in front of everybody. Well, when Cletus Nagra was killed, told me one Lagi took the leadership, and like Wani just said, told me Lagi rearranged religion. It wasn't a religion. I'm sorry. The Memphite theology was never a religion. It was a spiritual system to connect to the God one, and told me one fucked it all up. He made the worship of the God one into a worship of him, the Christ, the Christ, the Savior. When you see this long hair stringy Jesus, you are worshiping a weak ass general named Ptolemy One Lagi. But I was just wanted to add on to what you were saying. You're correct. It was corrupted from the beginning. I mean, not from the beginning. It was corrupted during the invasion of Egypt by Ptolemy One.
But like we said before, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And if you close your eyes and you think about what a Buddhist looks like, the first thing you see is a fat East Asian man. You don't see a dark brown uh, guy with cornrows and full lips. When you close your eyes and you think of Jesus, you may intellectually know that a person from that area wouldn't look like that, but you still see that image. When you close your eyes and think about what a Muslim looks like, the first image that comes to your mind is not Muhammad Ali, the most popular one, the greatest one, the most legendary Muslim. The picture that comes to my mind is some random Arab guy, and that is because they've ethnically branded, they've put their face on everything, they've pushed these religions by the sword, whether it be the missionaries um, that come, before and after the guns, in some cases, or whether it be by the sword, by the tip of the sword, where you have to become Muslim. They have done all the work in spreading this all over the world. And the originators of these concepts and ideas did not push these things aggressively all around the world. I don't, so at some point, it really becomes they feel like they earned it because they did all the work to bring these concepts out.
I was on mute. I put you're right, one. I put a image of Toby One Laggy in the jumbotron. This is very powerful, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all might want to be taking notes on this one. I'm not going to give Toby One credit for genius of what ended up happening with Christianity. Like Wani said, ethnically branding somebody to have you worship them. Even although that's what happened with Ptolemy One, I don't think in my read of history, I don't think he was that bright. I think Ptolemy One Lagi, history says Ptolemy One Lagi always wanted to be called Sotar, which means savior. He wanted to be called the savior, you know. So Ptolemy One saw the Egyptians not worshiping, but coming to absolute reverence and praise to the God One, and told me one Lagi wanted that praise. He wanted people. He shut down church and school in Egypt, and he wanted everybody to fall to their knees and worship him. That's how massively insecure this son of a bitch was. And when he changed the likeness of Heru, the Christ, the Charist, into his face, that spread on throughout Europe and then spread on throughout the world. So in essence, that was, in my view, a byproduct of his decision. It was a genius idea to have God look like, I almost said the enemy. That's what my spirit said. But to have God look like Europeans, but it's important to know that that wasn't his intent. His intent was more self-serving. Like, I want you to worship me. I want to be worshiped. He was massively insecure. Now back to Muslims, and my jumbotron's acting up. There it is. I got it. Um, back to the worship. Back to Islam, guys. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. Get out a notepad. We've been lied to. I teach a section of ancient world history, and I totally disagree with the book. The Western academic canon says that with the Abrahamic religions, Judaism was first, then Christianity, then Islam. That's wrong. That's very wrong. What was first was a system that would become Christianity. The Memphite theology, Aset, Asar, Haru, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Nope. Mother, Father, Child. You see, to having a child, the family unit was divine, and it is divine. And what's under attack through this system? The family unit, but that's a whole nother topic, whole nother space. My point of bringing this up is when Ptolemy one Laggy got one Egyptian Coptic, what Dr. Walter Williams called Uncle Tom Coptic priest, to change the likeness. You see, the Egyptian people would not have agreed with the likeness of the Christ being a white man. They would run from it. What Ptolemy one needed was a trusted priest or pastor, however you want to look at it, say, hey y'all, this is how God really looks. So he introduced it like a vampire, introduced it to the people. The movie Sinners is a good analogy for what happened with Christianity. You needed somebody to let you in the house, and this unnamed Coptic Egyptian priest let them in with the idea that Christ is a white man. Once that happened, ladies and gentlemen, a war of ideas broke out in Egypt. The Coptics, the Egyptian Coptic priest, got in an argument and they split down the middle. They said, no, God cannot. They split into diaphysitic and a monophysitic priest. Die means two, like dice. Mono, that means one. And an argument, I think it was the Council of Chalcedon. I'm gonna look for it while we're on space, but they had a meeting. The Coptic Egyptian priests knew this was wrong, and they had like a meeting. And the priesthood of the Coptics split down the middle because it's split between priests that knew this was bullshit and priests that were willing to go along with this new image of God for power. Has that changed? Do we have pastors that will sell people out for power? I'm just saying. Well, back to Islam. The Monophysites said God can only have a godlike nature, but he has no human form, right? The Diaphysitics said, you know what? God is both God and man, right? It's like in church you learn that Christ is 100% God, 100% man. That's the Diaphysitic point of view. Well, why did I bring this up? Dr. Walter Williams points out that this split of ideas a long time ago, um, these monophysitic and diaphysitic priests split ways, and the diaphysitics created what is known as modern Christianity, and the monophysites, they said that God has no human nature. God is God. He's not human. He's above human, or he's separated from human. And according to Dr. Williams, the monophysites ended up creating the system that we know of Islam. You know how they say the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, not to put any pictures of Muhammad up. Muhammad is invisible. That comes from the monophysitic point of view. My point is, all this confusion with respect to our spiritual system, to worship and serve the God one, was broken to pieces by Europeans. Go figure. Now, if we go a little bit after that, y'all heard of the Hagia Sophia. So think about it. What did Constantine use correct Christianity? It wasn't Christianity. Christianity is actually a really beautiful religion. He used what Dr. Claude Anderson, not Claude Anderson, Dr. John Henry Clark called Christendom, which is a weaponized form of Christianity. Christianity used as a tool of control. Back to the title. Once Constantine, we're gonna skip over a lot because there's so much to say, but once Constantine introduced it to uh, Europe and it became standard, Justinian went to Constantinople to take over a church that was led by the Monophysitics again. This church was later known as the Hagia Sophia. I think that means holy wisdom. This we're talking about 532 ACE in Constantinople. Some of y'all remember this from middle school. It was called the Church of the Blessed William. According to Dr. Walt Williams, I'm breaking Walt Williams out on that ass. He says, "quote A section of the Hagia Sophia, the world's first the world's first Christian and Roman Catholic church, built in 532 ACE in Constantinople, Turkey, by Justinian, was also called the Church of the Blessed William." Okay. After this was done, Justinian decided that the Melkite Copts were no longer needed. He began to usurp their power of religious authority. This usurped power has continued and is used today by the Roman Catholic Church at the Vatican. Stop right there. So in Constantinople, you had a gigantic church, a remnant of the Egyptian priest. That big beautiful church, the Hagia Sophia, that still stands, was led by Egyptian Coptic priest who are still practicing their system. But since Christianity at the Council at Nicaea in 325, I think 325 AD, um, uh, gave made Christianity the official tool of political power, Justinian walked up to the Church of the Holy Wisdom and said, and usurped the Egyptian priest. So what am I saying? I'm saying when you look at the Catholic Church and you see them uniforms and they look familiar to Egyptians, it's because they were. Justinian went to this Egyptian church and just took that motherfucker over and said, "Y'all step down. I am now the leader of this church, and we're going to do things my way." So it goes back to our space yesterday. Did Europeans create anything? No, they just took it over and rebranded it. Rebranded it. They took a tool of unity. The objective of Egyptian society was unity, to try to get back to the God one, get back to unity with the universe, get back in perfect harmony with the universe. And what did Justinian, this European, do? He took this tool of unity and turned it into a tool of division. Wani, are we living in just an opposite reality?
Yeah, we really are. That's why it's good to do comparative religions. I think you'll find that I think we focus on Christianity and Catholicism in some of their scandals, but unfortunately, they have a lot of the same types of scandals, if not more, in Buddhism because they have the dancing boy culture. Now, remember that dancing boy BS. It's the Ottoman Empire was, using that. They like to make boys dance. They like the harem dancers, and they like a lot of debauchery. So the places that they touched, all the way up to Tibet, have this dancing boy thing. And so the Buddha had a dancing boy troupe, and they would recruit all of these little 8 and 7, 8, 9, 10 year olds to be dancing boys. And of course, now they have all written books from the 50s and onward of how they were abused. So, um, the corruption is there, and it seems to reach each and every religion. I've never seen a religion that was not corrupt. Remember the thuggy, which is a group of criminals, which the word thug comes from. They all worshiped goddess Kali, and they had different beliefs. Some of them were Muslim, some of them were Hindu, and what was the other one? Oh, the other ones were Sikh.
Right.
They three different religions, and they all agreed to worship goddess Kali and kill millions of people. You've never heard of a criminal organization as prolific as the Thuggy. They were outrageously murderous, and they did it with a ritual. They did not spill one drop of blood. They strangled you with the yellow sashes that they wore around their, and you can see pictures of them with the yellow sashes. Now, I think that they increased their numbers because when they would rob people on the road, they would take their children, male children, and then all of a sudden their numbers just kept growing. So that's how they increase their numbers sometimes, by taking the children of the people they murdered.
Well, I think that the whole Hindu thing, that's kind of something else. We'll get into that later. But looking at the original um, spiritual system that was in tune to the universe, that fracture initiated by Alexander the Great and created by this little sorry ass general named Ptolemy One Lagi, um, created a ripple effect of fracturing. So just Constantine used it to conquer. Then after Constantine, Justinian took over the remaining religious systems and created the Catholic Church, which, according to Dr. Walt Williams, took the traditions of the Egyptian Coptics. Matter of fact, I was told, I've never been to Vatican, but maybe Wani can speak on this. I was told that there's an Egyptian obelisk at the Vatican and that they worship a black Madonna. Could it be a Set or Isis? I'm just saying. Well, anyway, um, all this fracturing, the reason why religions have been corrupted goes right back to Ptolemy One Lagi. He created that fracture. He used a system to create unity between mankind and the universe into a system of control, which is division. Just divide everything. You have these different religions all competing, saying that they're the right ones. And when you bring up Buddhism, um, who was it?
That's not even supposed to be a religion, but they
Right.
have gone against the Buddha, turned it into a religion, and proceeded to rape boys.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Right. According to was it? I forget the scholar. I got the book. I'll find it in a moment when somebody starts talking. But Buddhism, the Buddha story is damn near identical to the story of Christ. People don't know that
Oh,
Buddha was born on.
because they're lying.
It's a knockoff. It's all, you see how it's all coming from the original
They
story,
just lie.
right?
He's a regular guy. He did not get an immaculate birth. That's Buddhist lies. Or is that what you're going to say? That he had his mother
Yeah, yeah. It's
was,
similar to Christ.
okay, let's hear.
Yeah.
Let's hear what they said.
I'm gonna have to find the book. I don't want to get it wrong, but basically they said that Buddha was born on December 31st, and he did similar things to as Jesus the Christ. And then the author switches to Krishna in the Hindu face, right? Krishna. Krishna, like, literally means Christ. Krishna died on the cross, was born on December 25th. I'm just saying, it looks like all of these stories are imitating the original Memphite theology of Heru, the hero. Quetzalcoatl did the same thing, died on the cross, died for your sins. So, from my view of academic history, it looks like that story that was stolen by Ptolemy One Lagi kind of spread around, and people play. What's that game where you whisper in people's ear and the story changes? Was it radio? I forget the name of the story, but it looks like that. Everybody's telling the same story, but they don't know what they're telling because the story they told that they were informed of was stolen in the first place and corrupted by Europeans for as a means of very effective means of control. Last time I was in West Africa, and I'll put the picture up when I find it. I'm in the sub-Saharan jungle, and there are white pictures of Jesus Christ hanging up. I just, I ignored it for the first.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have any sense in their
I
head, so
Wani, I tried to ignore it. I said, nope, didn't see it, didn't see it.
they don't like each other, so let's just leave them alone. If they don't like themselves, then they probably don't like anybody who's brown.
No, no.
Um, now tell me how someone now tell me how someone tried to say Lord Krishna is the same story as Jesus. I'm interested.
Oh,
Because now we're talking about a whole bunch of gods, and Jesus is supposed to be, polytheistic. I mean, monotheistic,
I
not
I
polytheistic.
would love to talk for a minute. Let me go get a book.
Oh my goodness. Um, it's just that these people, and I believe these are the leaders of these religions, are running around trying to compete with Jesus. And the Jesus story of the Immaculate Birth, the Virgin Birth. I know that a lot of these people are trying to rebrand themselves with these stories and pretend like their um, prophet or deity or whatever has had the same background, but the Buddha is a regular guy, and I don't know what day he was born on. He was born quite a while ago, so I may not be able to find his actual birth date, but none of these people had an immaculate birth. I mean, I looked that up because people kept saying that they had an immaculate birth, and then they actually didn't. That's propaganda from those religions. They're in competition with the Jesus story. Just like the flood story, yes, people have had floods. They've had a lot of floods around the world, but they didn't have one flood that flooded the earth at the same time. That's the issue. Um, there have been floods, but not one flood that flooded the entire earth at once. Huckleberry, did you want to say something?
Hi guys. Yeah, I just got on, so let me apologize in advance if I'm speaking out of turn. But this is a very interesting topic to me, and over the past maybe 15, 20 years, I have researched, learned a lot of different things, and a lot of what you guys are saying is resonating with me. If I could just lend my perspective to the discussion, I would like to add that um, a lot of these gods and goddesses that we have come to know in modern times, these are the same ancient spirits. They're just renamed depending on the empire that's in rulership. So it started in with the ancient Sumerians or even the Babylonians, where you had Nimrod and you have the whole Enki, Enil, and that whole story. And then that got changed into Nimrod and his wife, which was his mother, heavily given incest with Semiramis and their child, which was Tammuz, which became Christ, which also became Osiris, Osset, and Heru. These are the same stories repeated, and this is why they come off as the Christ story. Christ just means the anointed one. It's not the actual name of the so called Black Messiah that represents us, that comes from our same lineage. And a lot of the tributaries are very similar, but it's actually very different because the difference is the lineage they were born from, why they had to come, and what their whole purpose is. Um, so that's one of the first things when we see the Pope and the rest of these guys worshiping these black faces. Yeah, they're worshiping Hamitic people and Babylonian people. Today, your Babylonians are your modern day East Indians for the most part. A lot of them have heritage through the Ethiopians and the rest of them, which is why they love to say that Jewish people are also Ethiopians, but they're not treated the same. They're not. All of these things contradict ancient text, okay? And a lot of these things were written on ancient walls. However, a lot of them would like to take credit for our ancient knowledge and say, well, we just got it from them. But here's what the problem is: they don't follow any of that. They follow something completely opposite. And then they hold up the text as a moniker to say, this is what we're doing. But it's actually the opposite. The truth of the matter is, these people practice a spiritual system that is completely opposite from ours. And it involves child sacrifice, not just with death and sexual perversion and blood sacrifice and all kind of things. It's a religion to them. Um, they placed a name on it. They actually curated religion out of the truth of what we actually practiced. These people took our folks, the true spiritual people of the earth that went around, and we're no different than we were then. Our influence was the same then. Um, our ability to teach the nations was the same then. Everyone copied us then. The envy was the same then as it is today. Nothing has changed. What changed is it's very easy to deceive people when you mix truth with lies. And so, a lot of our people, because we are spiritual people, even today, we listen to things that have a spiritual essence. And it's like, oh, well, that sounds familiar. So, we always want to get to a higher space spiritually. And through that deception, they were able to take us down. Also, we began to do things like our enemies. A lot of times, like we do now. Now we do everything like them. We worship their gods, we worship their holidays, we worship all of their holidays, everything, every ritual that we do is giving them power. I tell people all the time, everything is spirit. On the surface, carnally, we look at it as culture, and it is. But what is culture? Culture is our food, it's our dances, it's our innovative spirit, it's our activism. All of those things come from the soul. Soul food, soul music, soul brother, soul. The soul is the source of the spirit. Every single thing we do is spirit. The entire world copies us because of who we are. It's all spiritual. This thing started way, way, way long ago. And it is because there were one people group in the earth that was chosen to represent as kings and priests. There was no religion. There was no name for it. It was ingrained in us as a culture of people. It's how we moved and behaved. We didn't need to write it down. Eventually we started writing it down because it took them millennia to take us down. They warred against us for thousands of years, and they still are. The New World Order, and I know I'm kind of jumping around, but I'm trying to like wrap this in a context where it makes sense. The New World Order started a long time ago. The New World Order started when they were able to um, gain rulership over us, but it took them thousands of years to do that. This thing is an old and ancient bloodline war, and
Yeah, can I add on to that right quick?
yes, please.
So first warning, I realized that I left the book in my in some I left the book somewhere else, but I put it in a jumbo. I put it in a jumbotron. It's called the pay, and it's y'all. The book is $5. I urge everybody to buy a couple of them and pass them out. It's called The Pagan Origins of the Christ Myth. And to answer your question, Wani, from memory, Krishna, John G. Jackson talks about all these deities and how they have similarities to Heru, the hero, the Karist, um, the Christ rather. And Krishna was born in a cave. You know, Jesus was born in a manger. Krishna was born on the 25th of December, and he died on the cross for people's sins. It was like, really? Well, back to what Huckleberry was saying, she's right. Here goes a bomb I'm about to drop. Fire for effect. Check this out. Going, everything goes back to that
Wait, who said he died on a cross? Because he didn't die on a cross.
John G. Jackson.
Okay, he's not telling the truth.
Okay, I mean, I'm just saying what he said, and hopefully I'm not.
Right.
Hopefully I'm not
He,
getting
he,
him mixed up.
He
But
was
he died on a tree. He died
he
on a tree.
he
And
died in a
and
hunting accident where the hunter mistook him for a deer.
wow.
So let me just say this real quick and I'll be quiet. He died on a tree. In our script, it says, "Cursed is everyone that dies on a tree." There is a reason why they copied the same rituals they were doing to us throughout Europe for millennia over here. The Ku Klux Klan uniforms that they did in white here, the Romans did that in red and black. That's what Kanye fool, he showed up in that. Nobody understood it. It was symbolic. He was exposing them for who they are. They did all that over there.
Well, Huckleberry, not to interrupt you, just to minimize
Go ahead.
confusion. I kind of caused some confusion. We weren't talking about Heru or Jesus the Christ. We were talking. It was before you came up. We were talking about Krishna and Wani. I'm going off memory. I could be getting that died on a cross thing wrong, but I do remember.
No, no, they do keep putting this information out to say that everybody has the same story, everybody has a virgin birth, but they don't because Buddha clearly said, I'm just a regular guy. Um, and Krishna, by the way, Krishna means black or dark. And he's depicted as blue because blue is often dark.
Very true. That just
Um,
means black. When they depict them as blue or green, everybody in Earth was dark skinned. That's why we weren't called by races. We were called by nations, even before white people came. But you're very correct. Both of you are super correct. And I'm gonna take a picture of this book that I have that I bought. Uh, It's very hard to read. It's very scary. Um, but the East Indians, who are the original Babylonians, they actually wrote it. They are telling their truth. This breaks down all the various gods and what they go back to throughout the various empires, including Egypt. We were the light that came into Egypt.
Well, you said something real important. You said every Huckleberry, and I'm paraphrasing. You said everything's opposite of what it's supposed to be. If you go back to the ancient spiritual system that was unnamed. We call the Memphite theology of Aset, Asar, Heru, mother, father, and child. The enemy of that story, the enemy of Osiris was his brother, his evil brother Set Typhon. Some people say that turned into Satan, Set Typhon, Satan. That's what Bobby Hemmett said. Well, if you look at the picture in the Meta Netter, which a white man calls hieroglyphs, Set Typhon is he's facing an opposite direction. That's important because Set Typhon did everything opposite of what should be done. So all these opposite things we see, um, it goes back to Set Typhon, and a lot of the evil in my studies I've tracked back to the temple of Set. There are people, some Moors that I've talked to, say that the temple of Set still exists.
Well, the Temple of Satan still exists. I
What's
mean,
the
it
difference?
started, there isn't one because it's the same spiritual system. We have to start realizing that the same way they've renamed us 50 million times to help us lose our origin and our power, they rename religious systems and spiritual systems to kind of help people lose the trail. It's the same thing.
Now, I
The
wanted to ask, you said you put a book up that says Indians are Babylonians.
I'm gonna take a picture right now of it.
Why do you say they're Babylonians, though? It's two
East
different
Indians.
people.
These are
It's
okay.
two different people, though.
Well, their bloodline goes back to Hamitic nations. This is why your East Indians, your Pakistanis, a lot of them look very familiar and they come from a bloodline. that comes from Ham. When you look at Ham and the various nations and lands and tongues that they come out of, from Sanskrit all the way down, these people go back to the ancient Babylonians. They maintain the same practices, the same worships, the same everything. We can't look at each other phenotypically and just say, well, this is who you are. There's a lot of things you have to look at. Sometimes you have to look at their culture, you have to look at their language, you have to look at their practices. And these people have been very good at maintaining all of these things. Today, I live around a lot of East Indians. They worship a lot of gods. Um, the way that they name their gods is very much attributable to how the Egyptians named their gods and the same practices. The Egyptians had a lot of different gods. Um, you can say the same about the Romans and the Greeks that actually were endowed or imbued out of them. They came out of them same people. These these people, um, my conjecture is that they weren't a natural people that were born of the original strain of the human genome. They came out of these people through a genetic mutation, but they picked up on the very same practices. We were the only people that had one God, and we were considered weird and peculiar and all these different things, but we had the most
When you
spiritual
say
knowledge.
we, who are you referring to? Which we?
I'm referring to SBA, aka Negro,
But we
aka
were around thousands
Israelite.
of years ago.
I was just about to say that. I was thinking the same thing. I was putting the same correlation together.
Yeah, I mean, we've been renamed a lot of times. So, I mean,
Hmm.
I know a lot of people be
What was
like,
our
well, I
previous
thought y'all
name?
was the Indians, and I thought
Wait,
y'all was
wait, wait. What was our previous name?
to what?
You said we were renamed.
Well, I'm walking through some of the different bywords because these were considered bywords. So I trace all of my history from the earliest record that a lot of these records go back to. So I would say the earliest that I can speak of, I would say these were Israelites. Now, this was not when they were in Egypt because they weren't a nation then. Okay, so these were the people that were known of the city of Ramses, but this
And they
was,
lived where?
pardon me,
And they lived where?
what do you mean, where did they live?
The Israelites. Where did they live?
The Israelites lived within the Middle East. They came from various different places. So Abraham um, came out
But you said
of.
they had one line. So where did they come
So I
from?
was going to explain that. So Abraham came out of one place. He ended up down in Africa. When he left out of Africa and he began to procreate, it's thousands of years of history, but when it ended up happening is there were a nation of people that came out of slavery, very similar to the story that we're having right now. So it was kind of like a foretelling,
Which slavery are you referring to?
the slavery that happened in Africa.
Which
So
one?
when, go ahead,
Which one?
the one that involved Egypt and the people that enslaved the so-called Israelites that left out of there. Now, I can tell you that there are books and texts where they write about the various plagues and things that happened during that time, where a certain amount of people left and spoiled that land. And as a matter of fact, that land wasn't even called Egypt. Egypt means land of bondage or land of slavery. The original name of that land was Mizraim. We left there,
Oh, hold on
and
a
the reason
second.
I can say we, if you just let me finish, and I know you have a lot of questions, I'm happy to answer all of them. I don't know everything, but I'll answer according to what I know. We left there and we were made into a nation at that time. So in that
A
time, we
nation
were,
where?
pardon me,
A nation where?
what do you mean a nation where?
You
We
said
left,
you were made into a nation. Do you know the location of the nation?
We left out of Egypt. The modern knowledge would tell you that we went east and north up into what they today call Israel
Okay, now
or
stop.
Jerusalem, and that's not true. Go
Okay,
ahead.
hold on. And how did all of these people make an orderly uh, transfer over to the Americas?
I'm not saying that they did, and I'm not saying that that is true. And that is the second remnant that went over. So that's what I was getting to. There are two different factions of the 12 tribes. The first tribes made it to what's called Asareth, and they came over to the New World, or what was the ancient world, but it was the New World to the white man. They came over here as early as recorded history, 721 BC. This is recorded in Columbus's diary. He wrote to Queen Isabel in Spain and told her he found the 10 lost tribes.
In
Okay.
700,
721 BC, before
Columbus
Christ.
wrote somebody in 7
He wrote the Queen of Spain. Yes,
didn't
he did.
exist.
Pardon me?
Columbus did not exist in 700.
Um, there were
He
diary.
said,
Well, we came
hold
over here
on.
as early as, hold on, we were
Shh.
here as early as then.
Shh. Columbus was sailing around in 1492. So he did not write anything in the 700s.
Yeah, when we're talking about history, we got to be as precise as we can, and none of us know. I don't know everything, but some we have. What we have to realize is we're in a system of white supremacy where overwhelming amount of money and resource has been built into confusing us. You know, I appreciate your scholarship, Huckleberry, but some of the things don't quite line up. I hear what you're saying, and I'm not taking away from your scholarship. I appreciate it, but some things kind of don't really line up with his, which is okay. That's no attack towards you. We have been attacked with false information. Israel, from my studies, and I'm not the arbiter of all information. When somebody come in talking about they know everything, fucking block them. I blocked somebody last night talking about I know the one truth and couldn't tell me where the hell you.
And I don't. And I
Well,
don't profess to
no, no,
at all.
I'm not saying.
What I'm saying is, if I'm allowed to explain, it's kind of hard when you're being diverted with question after question after question, and you're trying to explain one thing, and then you're hit with another question, and you're trying to explain. I didn't intend to say that in 721 BC, obviously Columbus was not alive. Columbus was responsible for the southern tribes. Okay. The northern tribes happened after the conquest of the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar. These things, you don't have to believe in the Bible. You don't have to believe in any of those spiritual texts. You can go back to historical texts, the secular texts. These people are so arrogant, they wrote about it and recorded it. They hold them in their high universities like Oxford and Cambridge. They hold these books in their museums. These things are well
No, no,
documented
no.
and well
I
recorded.
believe you, and
Okay.
don't
That's
take
all I'm saying.
don't take it personally. Like when, and it happened to me earlier. I don't have a book with me, and
I'm not, but you know what? What I feel like is
I
if
made a
we're all
claim.
going to like
Hold
get
on,
an
hold on, hold on,
understanding
hold
and
on, hold on,
build,
hold on.
we should listen to each other.
I made a claim earlier that Krishna was crucified on a cross. That's my memory. I
Hmm.
think it might be wrong. And the way we operate on this space is if something we're trying to build, and if something doesn't
Hmm.
line up, it's like, hold on, stop. Where did that come
Hmm.
from? So don't take it personally. Juan is just
I don't take it personal at all, and I
figure
understand
out
that
where you're getting stuff from.
our people have been lied to for so long, and we have the longest and most extensive history. So there's a lot of dots that need to be connected, and all of us are bringing something valuable. But I think what's profitable for edification is that we all listen to each other and search out these things and then say to each other with love, like, well, I don't know, I haven't read that. I haven't understood that. That doesn't make sense to me. Here's what I understand. Because it doesn't
I hear you.
need to
I
feel like
hear
a
you, but
doctrine.
I'm gonna push
Yeah.
back with love.
Yeah.
It's dangerous on our space, and in spaces in general.
Hmm.
Well,
Well, it's my first time here, so I
no,
apologize if
no,
I'm
no,
coming,
no apology
you
necessary.
know.
I'm just telling you because you don't know. it's
Wait,
dang.
was I being mean?
No, 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 no.
Not at all. Not at all. I just would, I would like to, because I can tell you that any thought that I have and any understanding that I have, I can complete that. But it's a little bit difficult when I feel kind of put on the spot and I'm trying to explain one thing and then I'm asked another question before I finish explaining that. So, yeah, I did misspeak. And obviously, we all know Columbus wasn't
That's,
alive
but that's
in the
because,
BC era. You know, that's, I mean,
okay,
I know that, you know that, we all know that. So,
okay, but the reason
yeah.
that I asked questions is because
Hmm.
you said some things that were incorrect.
Okay.
So why would we go further until we straighten that out? Like Indians or
Absolutely.
Babylonians. I don't know where that came from. Indians are
So,
Indians
what do
and
you understand a
the
Babylonian to
others
be?
are Middle Eastern type people at today. That region
What do
is
you understand a Babylonian to be
Hold
then?
on, Huckleberry, you're going too fast. Like we
today
Oh,
yeah.
that area is invaded by Arabs.
but we're talking
Depends
about ancient days. We're not
depends
talking
on
about today. What I'm trying to
but they're
explain
not
is that
Indians. Indians
everyone,
weren't Indians didn't hang out
they
over
weren't
there.
called East Indians. They're
Okay.
called East Indians today. We weren't called Africans. We're called They're called Africans today. We weren't called niggers or Negroes or black, but we are today. What I am trying to say is that there have been so many bywords, and by byword, I mean various names to cover the original name that goes back to the most ancient text that we all know of. We're talking about religion and text and old books.
Now, what people alive today are in this group with us that you discussed?
Say it again. I didn't hear you.
What other people alive today are in our group?
What do you mean by our group? Like in our bloodline lineage, in our
In
what
my
do you,
group, foundational Black Americans. Are there
there
any
aren't.
other groups?
No,
So,
no.
what happened to the 12 tribes and all these people are in our group?
They're not in our group. There are
So,
12
that's a new
distinct.
ideology.
Okay, so if you're asking me, I'm happy to answer it if you want me to. So there are 12 tribes, and I've explained this on other spaces. And again, my thoughts are my own, and everybody's entitled to their own. Um,
No,
Mine is,
we don't do that here. We don't just make up stuff and go, "This is my thought."
I'm not making
We
up
actually
anything. I'm
use
introducing my
archaeology. We
explanation,
use anthropology, archaeology,
and I'm
and
doing that. I'm going to do
reputable
that.
books.
But the
And we
problem
try
is,
to. Even
you,
some books are going around lying and saying that everybody was killed on the cross. That's
right,
unfortunate that we have
right.
people trying to make the Buddha into a supernatural guy when he was
That's
a
true.
human
That is
being.
unfortunate, and it's
And
untrue. So that's not what I'm doing. So you asked me, who is in our group. So, very plainly, um, our group is based on lineage. It always has been. The entire biblical script is based on lineage. There is a reason why there is a bloodline that's traced all the way back to Adam and goes all the way forward to Christ. Christ comes from a particular tribe that's called Judah, which is the king tribe. That is the same tribe that we are from. The reason why I know that is because when you look at the history of what happened to Judah, it doesn't line up with any other people in earth. We are the most,
Let me ask you
is
something.
what? They were enslaved?
no, that it's more than that.
What is
Where
it?
It's way more than that.
What is it?
Who has a question? Should I answer your question
go ahead with Wani
or
first, but
Edgar?
I do have a quick
Okay.
question.
What lines
Okay.
up with us?
Okay. So I'll answer that. So when you go back to what happened to Judah, there was a time in history where the northern tribes and the southern tribes split, and the southern tribes existed and had to spread out into different parts of Europe, different parts of Spain, different parts of Portugal, and they were began to be known as Jacobites. It was illegal for them to be called Israelites, And then it was illegal for them to be called Jew because Jew is short for Judah. Judah means king. It was illegal for them to maintain their holy rites and rituals, which were Sabbaths and holy days. Why? Because the Romans had already, way beyond Constantine, as I said, it took thousands of years to subdue us. It took them a long time to begin to break us spiritually first, militarily second. So, what they began to do is outlaw these things, and the Inquisition was against us first. They drove us out of Europe. King James, and I have proof of this,
And
and I
what's
can put
Judah
that
living?
also
Where was Judah living in Europe?
all over. We were never in one location. That is a misnomer. It's almost as disrespectful as saying all Black people lived in Africa. We never did. All Black people inhabited all of the earth.
Okay,
Okay.
but you're
So we
talking
live,
about Jewish people, though.
I'm not talking about Jewish people. Jewish is a fable.
Okay,
Jewish is just that. It's
whatever. You're
ish.
speaking about Israelites. Where were they living?
All over. That's why they had a similar to how Islamic people have a thing where they come together once a year to do a ritual. We came from all over the earth to do certain homages, certain rituals. We lived all over. So we didn't live in one particular place. We weren't a small people. We lived everywhere. So again, as I,
Huckleberry, I
mhm.
appreciate it, but like we're jumping all. What maybe you're new to this space. We want to kind of verify stuff, um, and I'm not saying you do this, but some people use the Bible as a historical text. It's not. It's a book of myth.
I can give you secular texts. I just said I can give
Facts
you
about what?
what I'm saying. I feel like it's I feel like the conversation is very, instead of being inquisitive from a position of let me see what it is you have to say, it's inquisitive from a position of you're full of crap and I have to prove that you're wrong somewhere.
I don't,
I'm just speaking
I
of
don't,
what I know.
I don't think you're full of crap. I don't.
Okay.
But
But what I was gonna
hold
say
on,
is,
Huckleberry. You kind of like talking
okay,
over people and stuff.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. You don't know. Well, what we do in this space is if something doesn't line up from what we've discussed or discovered, we're trying. What one is trying to do is try to find out where you're getting this from, and if it doesn't line up, we're challenging the information. Let me let you know this is not a challenge to you. You sound like a mighty fine person. This is the information is just not lining up, and I
Well,
sat
I'm
back.
just answering questions. I'm answering questions.
Okay.
I haven't been given an opportunity to say, here go this source, here go this source. I've been asked questions, and when I start answering a question, then here comes another question, and then when I start answering that question, here comes
But
another
I didn't
question.
get an
I
answer.
was,
You said they lived all over. That's not an answer. They didn't live all over.
we did. We actually were in
Where
the
did you
Americas
okay, where did
way
you live
before
in Australia?
slavery.
Where did you
That's
live in
why we say
Australia?
that we are the Indians because when the
Where did you live in Australia? You didn't live all over. So say where you lived so we can see what you're talking about.
And again, that's not an attack on you. We're just trying to find out information. From my perspective, when we say we, I'm kind of confused because when I hear we, I think of foundational Black Americans. That's what we means to me. That may not be what y'all talking about. But when we say we, I'm thinking of what I know about history. I know for a fact is we, as foundational Black Americans, are a relatively new lineage because we're an amalgamation of different things. So I get kind of confused when we say we, we are and I'm not, I think somebody said, I'm not saying you said a Huckleberry, but I heard we are the Israelite. I'm like, well, wait, how, I'm not saying we're not, I'm just saying how do we know that this space is all about trying to seek knowledge. And I do this for a living and I'm wrong all the time. So don't take it personal. My introduction to X was people saying, what the hell are you talking about? How do you not know this? I'm like, oh, okay. So don't take it personal. And ladies and gentlemen, I will say this: it's important to kind of take information slowly. Let's try not to skip, and no attack on anybody, but let's try not to skip from A to B. If we're talking about A, let's stick to A
Okay.
until we
Well,
have an understanding.
I'm gonna yield, but I just want to say this. A lot of us, and when I'm speaking of us, I'm talking about foundational Black Americans. A lot of us, our history is sourced and traced to this land, but we have a history that exists in different parts of the world, and it's the same, it's communal. And that's what makes it so amazing. That's what sets us apart and identifies us differently from other people. We have a history that led us to this part of the world. And yeah, a lot of us got left in different parts of the world, but they have the same experiences, the same curses, the same disrespect. Our experience is different from any other so-called, as they call want to call us all, people of color or minority or Black, when we're not all that. We have a very unique experience. There are very specific things that were placed on the Israelites that only fit us, that only we went through. And this is a historical fact. It's recorded in every part of the land, including Europe, where we live. When we were drove out of Europe, we were forced to run and flee and hide in Africa. Those of us that came over from that area in different parts of the time, many of us were already here. Many of us came out of a bondage that came from the Babylonian Empire a long time ago. And when we came out of that empire, we came into what we knew as the ancient world, what this devil knows as the new world. When they found us, they wrote each other letters and passed each other gifts. This is what they recorded in their history, that they found us. They knew they could get rich off of us. And then they brought over a fraction more of us that was from a different portion of our tribes, and we mixed in together and became a mightier and greater people. No, we're not all FBA. um, I don't agree with many Israelites that stand on a corner and yell and act crazy. I don't agree. I feel like they're agents. I don't agree with the ones that say, "Oh, it's the
Well,
Hispanics
well
and it's
let me
the."
kind of prove my point. I sat
Yeah.
back and listened to you. You said Israelite several times. From my study of history, the term is with the I. Israelite is a misnomer. It was Asriel and Asriel, A-S, Asriel.
It's
And
actually neither.
what,
It's
what,
actually,
Does
hold
anybody
on.
care that these
yeah,
people have nothing to do with us?
Right, that's what I'm
They're
trying to say.
it's actually
well,
neither.
they don't. We're not
Okay.
Middle Eastern. We don't even have any. Like if you look at
That's
a
untrue. There have been many archaeological digs that prove opposite. There's been the
no,
same dig.
Huckleberry,
That's untrue.
when you look
we,
at the average Black American's DNA
They
profile,
all our
may I
our
say a
skeletal
sentence?
bones.
May I say a sentence? When you look at the average Black American's DNA profile, one thing is glaringly clear, that the Levant region is never even, I mean, you would have to have a nomad from the Fulani to get a speck of Arab genetics. That's the funny thing about it. They've latched on. These ideologies came along before DNA, and so they just make up whatever they want. This is not a time to make up whatever you want because the DNA is telling on people. So all the people that said they were Jewish in history, like Ethiopians. I'm not saying they weren't practicing Judaism, because they were. They have a long history of practicing all the Abrahamic religions. In fact, they may have even come from them. They certainly have a lot to do with all of the religions, but they're not ethnically Jewish. The only people that are ethnically Jewish that we know of are the Limba people in southern Africa, not South Africa, southern Africa. They're the only people, and we're not related to them. They have a completely different bloodline that
Okay, but
relates
there's no
to the
such thing
Levant.
as ethnically Jewish. That's a
Yes, it
made up
is.
thing.
No, it's
It's
not.
not.
No,
It's
it's not.
not.
No, it
No.
is. It's very interesting. I'm glad you brought it up. You can't be ethnically Christian. You can't be ethnically Christian. You cannot be ethnically Muslim.
facts.
but you can be ethnically Jewish.
But
And
we can
that's,
trace our
hold
bloodline back to the
on,
slave fields, right?
talking. Shh. You can be ethnically Jewish. And the reason is because they were isolated a long time and they married in a certain way, which created certain DNA signatures that are only associated with them. That's why when they do their genetics, it will literally say Sephardic and Ashkenazi. And they do have, some of them have the
But
Cohen
what you're not
priesthood.
understanding, can I
I
explain?
no,
Can I please explain?
no, you can't explain me out of facts. They have a um, Cohen
The
priestly.
Torah, the Torah traces through the father.
They have a priestly line.
You don't even have an idea of what you're talking about, honestly.
May I have a
Oh
word, please?
Lord.
No,
The
hold on one second,
Torah
David.
traces through the father's bloodline. These people that have deceived the world, they have traced through the mother's bloodline and they've made it illegal to do DNA tests against them.
Huckleberry. Now I've been real patient, and I'm listen. What we're doing that's not effective is we're jumping through topics. Like
But what's unfair is you ask me a question. When I try to answer it, you divert or you gaslight. And then when I'm trying to break down, this is what I know. And this is what I'm trying to explain. It's important for us to all get an understanding.
Huckleberry, hear me out. Hear me out. We'll talk about, let's say, A, and before we have a complete standing of A, we jump all the way to D. I'm not saying
I'm
that's
not
wrong.
jumping. I'm just talking. I'm explaining what I'm being asked. And what I'm saying is, yes, Wani is completely correct. There is a science. Similarly to how there's an Egyptology science, it's as false as Judaism and Jewishness. It's as fake and false as a $3
So you're
bill.
saying that the Limba people that live in southern Africa are
That is
not.
not what I'm saying.
Well, then
That
you
is
said I
not what
was
I'm saying.
wrong, and
If
then you
you
said
would
I was
allow
right.
me to, if you would
Stop
allow
telling me
me
that.
to explain
You just
instead
said
of
I was
always
wrong, and then you
wanting to, Wani, I feel like you always want to prove.
stop. You said I was wrong, and then you turned around and said I was right. I already know I'm right because I follow those studies to see who is showing up
Do you
as
know who's
from.
behind do you know who's behind a lot of the studies that are telling you that the Ethiopians are Jews and that are telling you only certain tribes
No, they said they weren't
and who
ethnically
has the
Jewish.
authority to say who's a Jew?
The people that are doing the research, they said they were not ethnically Jewish, that they were beta Jews, which
Ugh,
means basically they have a long history of
okay,
practicing
it's fine.
Judaism.
You guys asked me, how did I
Well,
know we were all the same if
okay, wait a minute. You said things that I didn't say. I said the Ethiopians were not proven to be
they're
ethnically
not, but
Jews.
the Falasha are. There are,
The
our people are
Limba people,
scattered in different
the
parts of.
Limba people are the only people proven until further
Lord
notice.
have mercy. Okay, well, that's fine. If anybody ever wants to allow me to
So
talk and
we're Falasha.
explain,
Okay, look, explain this. We're Falasha people.
they share the same DNA haplotype.
Okay, so
These
we're Falasha.
haplotypes
Got it.
trace
Long
back.
as you
There's
know.
two, pardon me? I'm giving you, I can give you linguistics, cartography, science, I can give you all of that, but I'm not allowed to talk. I keep getting muted and gaslit. And it's not about proving who's wrong. It's
You're
about
not.
let's all listen to
We're
each.
not gaslit. We're not Ethiopian, ma'am. That's a whole nother group. We're not related to them. We don't look like them. We don't sound like them. We don't have a lineage like them. They don't show up as
We
part of
aren't
our.
related to them. We are not related to them.
Okay,
We
you
are
just said we
not.
were.
I did not say that. You're putting words in my mouth because you want to have a disagreement because that's where you get your clout.
No, that's not true. That's not
I'm not
true.
trying to have a disagreement. I'm trying to build and give an understanding.
Ma'am, with all due respect, you've been talking over her. Like we're trying to
She's talking
understand.
over me and I'm getting muted when I'm being asked a question.
And well, let's have some. This is not personal on this stage. We're not trying to say this isn't about what we know and being right. This is about information. And frankly, if something if an issue comes up that we know is, or somebody on stage, I might not know. Like I said, I got shut down earlier because I was wrong.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
it's wrong, we have to stop right there and sort that issue out before we move to the next issue. Because
Correct. I agree with
yeah,
that.
so
I
don't
don't
don't take
disagree
it
with
personal. This
anyone.
ain't personal, but
You keep saying that, and I'm not taking anything personal. What I have a problem with is we're not edifying the room or making progress if we're not allowing the person who raised their hand to add commentary, and we keep cutting them off to ask these gotcha questions and not allowing them to finish. Oh, well, where did we live? Well, what city? What? Come on, we're talking about 3,000 years ago. You want me to give you a city? That's
And I
silly.
didn't say the
Um,
city. I said where
well,
to live.
I'm exaggerating a point, but you understand.
Hmm.
Hopefully, you understand where I'm coming
People do
from.
live in
I'm trying to
regions.
give in a
Do
short
you
amount of time
do
a
you admit that people live in regions and are known to be in regions? Because you're saying people are everywhere, so you don't have to answer the
okay.
question.
No,
You're
I will
being
say this:
evasive.
our bloodline is not just here. That's what I will say to you. What I will say to you is
Whose
it's
bloodline?
complete.
Who are the people?
FBA. That's FBA, Negro,
Where else do
Black.
FBA live?
You got FBA that live in Africa today that chose to move over there. You got FBA
No,
that live in Europe.
we're not talking about people choosing. We're talking about people that are still there from before.
Okay, so I've
Like
been muted
you
again.
said,
So you just asked me a question. So let's use a little bit of logic right quick. When I speak on FBA, I'm speaking of a bloodline lineage that goes back to slavery in this land. What I'm also speaking of is a bloodline lineage that ties to a spiritual um, commonality that existed in various parts of the world. Similar to how we would say, oh, well, the Egyptians conquered various lands, or the Assyrians conquered various lands. That don't mean they only lived in Assyria. Um, that being said, what I am trying to express is this: our people have a similar experience. I'm not mixing us with Caribbeans. I'm not mixing us with Africans. I'm not mixing us with Europeans. I'm not mixing us with any of that. One of the things or the blessings that's on our head is that we have a mantle of authority on us as FBA. FBA, aka Negro, aka Israelite, aka colored, aka how many other
Israelite
freaking
yeah,
people
yeah,
come
yeah,
let
from
me
the
yeah.
finish
South
what
That
I'm
region.
that,
saying.
that
Please let me.
Israelites come from the Levant region,
yeah.
and we don't
Okay,
come from the
they do
Levant
not.
region.
They do
Uh,
not. They do not.
They
They
do.
do not. They do not.
They do. That's why the Limba came from there. They went to Yemen and then went to southern Africa. That's where they came from. That's why they're the only people that are of African descent, and they have a very high amount of priestly DNA.
And that's why they found Negro bones all over the
well,
earth. But let me just finish telling what I'm
hold on,
saying. Okay.
hold on,
Negro,
Huckleberry.
man, now you're really losing it.
Yeah,
Negro bones have nothing to do with people that are Jewish.
What? You're
Negro
talking about a
bones found all over the earth, that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
you're confusing genealogy and
No, you're
religion.
confusing Negro bones with Israelites. That's the first problem.
Jewish has nothing to do with Negro bones. That's where
Well,
you're confused.
no, I'm not confused at all.
You're very much so
That
confused.
no, I'm not.
What's a Jew?
Miss
So,
Huckleberry, you're confused. Miss
What is a
Huckleberry, I
Jew?
hate to break it to you.
What is a Jew?
so Phalasha Jews are known as Beta Israel.
And it means stranger.
Mm-hmm. What do they
And do
have
you
to?
know what their bloodline goes back to? It has nothing to do with a religion. You can be Islamic
Can
and
you
still
calm
be an
down?
Israelite.
What do
You
they
can
have
be
to?
Christian. You can be a Satanist and be
And what do they have to do with Black Americans? These
if you be
philosophy people.
quiet long enough, you'll get to the point, but you won't. You won't
Now,
allow
Miss
me to.
Huckleberry, Miss Huckleberry, you're gonna come up here with some goddamn sense. Otherwise, you're gonna get off the goddamn stage. Plain and simple.
Who is that?
You, this is
Elijah,
Captain. No, this is
EJ, or
Captain talking
whatever?
to you. This is Captain talking to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I didn't want things to go here, but I'm gonna use this as a teachable moment.
No, you don't have to. I'll go ahead and let myself down. Y'all go ahead and confuse bloodline and religion and
Well,
all what
see,
you talking about.
that's kind of
That's the problem.
contentious.
It's not.
That's kind of contentious. She said Israel, and right then and there, I was trying to follow her,
It's
but
just a byword.
I
You
You
know what I'm
said you're
saying?
leaving the stage.
Negro.
Get the fuck
It's
off the
no
stage. Bye
different.
bye.
It's just a
Off the
title.
stage. Off the stage you go.
yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I had a real smart boss one time. He's an attorney, and he said the devil is in the details. We did contracts, and I'm not saying that the she had any ill intent. I was actually liking some of the stuff she was saying. It was interesting, but when you're saying something and there's a detail that's not right, you need to stop everything, and sort that detail out without moving on to the next topic. That's one of the biggest. Go ahead.
Imagine if you were trying to, if it was some type of scientific or math equation, and you got one thing wrong and you didn't stop.
Right.
You probably would blow up
The
something.
whole shit will
Like,
collapse. Thank you, Nikki. And that's all we were doing. I wanted to let her talk. I've let her talk longer than I've let anybody talk on this. I wanted to hear her out, but what she kept doing, ladies and gentlemen, is inserting things that didn't make sense, and either I or the co-host would stop her and say, "Hey, what do you mean by that?" And then she jumped to another topic. That's confusion, and I'm not saying she had any ill intent, but that's why we were conquered is the enemy will give us a bunch of nice stuff, and in the middle of it be something what Neely Fuller would call sweet poison. It would be like, okay, oh, by the way, it's just gonna cost you the life of your child. But moving on, like what the hell? Hold on one second. Cost me the life of my child. What you mean by that?
She's a tether lover, bro. That's just what it is.
Yeah. But I appreciate it. It was good dialogue and it was a great teachable moment. Khalid, I'm sorry, David.
Yeah.
David, he was up here before you. David, you've been up here a while. What's on your mind?
Yes. I would just like to add on to what the sister was referring to. You misspoke earlier, Professor, when you called the Bible a book of mythologies. Also, um,
Oh,
I
it is.
I
It's not a book of facts. It's not. That's a fact.
actually it is, Professor. My name is
Here
Doctor
we
David.
go.
Here we
Do
go.
you believe that
Excuse me,
Noah?
sir.
Do you believe that Noah's Ark is a real story that actually happened?
I'll explain.
No. Do you believe that Noah's Ark is a real? Do
We're
you?
not going to
Do you
play.
believe that Noah's Ark is a real story that actually happened?
Listen, if you
No,
allow
I do not listen. I ask a
if you allow me
question.
to give my dissertation,
No, you're not
No,
doing a
you're not giving a
dissertation.
dissertation here.
You must be
No.
crazy.
You wrong space. You came up
I'm
here.
not doing all that.
This is perfect, ladies and gentlemen. Because here goes another one. No disrespect to anybody's religion, but the King James version of the Bible is not a book of facts. There may be truth in it, but it's a book of myth, according to Dr. John
actually
Henry
it isn't.
Clark.
Actually, it is not a book of myths.
Well, what's that Noah's Ark story about?
Damn, what the fuck is it, smart guy? What the fuck is it?
And we don't care about credentials here, but some of us got plenty of them. I don't mention none of mine because they are irrelevant.
Well, I got mine the hard way.
I don't care how you got 'em. Tell me how. Explain your defend your stance. How's the Bible a
Thank
book of
you.
facts?
Thank thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay,
I will
go ahead.
gladly defend
Go
my faith.
ahead.
Thank you. Well, what most people don't realize is that the Negro is not African to begin with. The ne-
Stop right there. That's not what I asked him. Y'all see, ladies and gentlemen, was I speaking a wrong language? I said explain. I was very specific. I was not complicated. And he talking about a Negro. Sir, get off my stage. Next. Hey, Khaled, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm sorry, you guys are cooking up like Benihana's tonight. Um, I really appreciate your space, and you guys had a really wonderful space the other night. It was very fascinating.
and sorry, very entertaining as well. Um, One of the things I just want to say, and I'm not trying to defend Huckleberry or whatever. I think from my observation, I think what she was trying to talk about is what some of these certain, I guess, mindsets talk about in regards to lineage. They try to tie the 12 tribes to being connected with certain lineages that's not necessarily tied into a religious theology. I'm not saying I buy that, or I'm not saying I even ascribe to that at all. But I think that's what she was trying to articulate respectfully. Um, One of the things that I would like to say is Tariq Nasheed did an excellent job. He was speaking with somebody that was, I believe they were from like Iran or something like that, on a space, and they were going back and forth some. And I'm just paraphrasing, but basically something he said very eloquent. He broke down something that I had found out through research and from other scholars as well, that a lot of the people that are in these so-called Middle Eastern areas and different things, they're actually descendants of Khazarians and Turkish peoples and different people that came down from up north, thousands of years ago. And then they have pretty much co-opted these different cultures in these different lineages as if they come from that background or they come from that black line, that bloodline or whatever. But when you really do the knowledge, i.e., Dr. John Hendrik Clark, the late Runoka Rashidi, to Wayne Chandler, just on and on and on. Dr. Ben, just on and on and on. You see a lot of the people. There was a certain Ethiopian, and not just Ethiopian, but other African genomes and different things that covered, before the Berlin Conference, all the way over to what is called the Middle East. You know, all those things were more of a certain melanated peoples, and a lot of that through different scholarships got mixed up and got scattered and whatnot. And then also, I just want to leave with this real quick. Just a little something that fascinates me over the years is there's been numerous resets with global history and global cultures and whatnot, where it's either been natural disasters or some kind of war. You guys even talked about certain evidences of certain types of things that happened thousands of years ago that could have led to different types of destruction, which was very fascinating, by the way. So I'm thinking, when you have these different things, there's a lot of things that have been rewritten, a lot of things have been taken out that deal with everything from Vimanas to different ways that we've had energy more advanced or just as advanced as ways that we have now to different types of forbidden technologies. Microcremo, for example, forbidden archaeology. This German archaeologist named Klaus Dana, artifacts that don't really make sense that were discovered in what is considered the Western Hemisphere, i.e., North America, Central South America, etc., the islands and all this kind of stuff. You want to have some fun, it, kind of look into these different things, and you see that there's more questions that I definitely am looking to have answered sooner or later. But that's it. I mean, I'm not claiming to know anything more than you guys, and I love you guys, and I really appreciate your space and much respect.
Oh, much love. And a lot of y'all in here know more than me. I don't claim to know anything. I know just a couple of things. No, hold on, let me be specific. I think I know, you know, I used to think I knew a lot more than I actually know. The smartest
No,
people
you're brilliant. You're brilliant.
I appreciate it. But smartest people that I've ever met in my life, and I met some really brilliant people, all say the same thing. I don't know. Earlier, a gentleman came up here and got just offended and flew off the handle when I said the Bible is a book of myth. Let me tell you something. Princeton University has a PhD in mythology. And there's a going saying that myth is more accurate than history. So that's not a dig. Myth is a very complicated way of talking about facts, talking about facts that are so advanced that you can't talk about them in a simple way. So, yeah, we're gonna go to
I want to add on something to that real quick to
go ahead.
compliment you on that. Joseph Campbell. Boom.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The whole Star Wars thing. Yeah,
Yep.
true. It's very true. We're gonna go to appreciate you, brother. We're gonna go to let's see. I think Miss no, Captain. Go ahead, Captain, and then Miss Stacy.
She can go ahead, bro. I can go after her.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Hey, you guys. So, first, I want to say real quick, Professor, you know a lot. Okay, you know way more than me. You know a lot.
Probably not. I
So
don't.
don't, so don't sell yourself short. I didn't say you know everything. I said you know a lot. To me, you know a lot of stuff. So, anyway, I'm just gonna give you that. I'm trying to give you your flowers. Um, but yesterday I did. I think somebody was letting me up, and then I had raised my hand, and all of a sudden I got dropped. And I don't know what happened. And I was gonna come back in, but I ended up getting a phone call. I just, I don't know if you guys or if somebody remembers seeing me in there and was like, "Hey, where did she go?"
No,
So I
I
just
don't
wanted to let
remember
you know.
seeing you, but that's been happening a whole lot. I've been getting a whole lot of back channels about that. It's like they don't want us to have people in our space.
Oh yeah, they've been
Yeah,
tripping.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Um, but I had to come up. I do see what your theme is here, real quick. The our immigrants. What is that? Uh,
Vampire.
oh, I was gonna say devils, demons, or whatever. Yeah. Whew. Okay. The reason I came in tonight, I'm sorry, you guys. I had to let you know. I literally just got home from watching Sinners. I had to go see it. Y'all been talking about it. I've been hearing about it so much. I saw Tariq's face on it. I saw Black. What is it? No, not Black Alpha Network. Well, I watch them too.
And
But
your
what is it?
thoughts?
Afro
Your
Afro
thoughts?
Elite.
Your thoughts?
Wani. I loved I'm sorry. I loved it. I was thoroughly, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Of course, I got in my emotions. I got, I got in my feelings, and because I didn't really know much about the movie. I think I saw a poster once, and I was like, "Oh, that looks interesting," but I never saw the commercials or anything. And when I heard Therese Space talking about it, and when I heard other people talking about it, and I said, "I gotta go see this movie." I gotta go see this movie. I need to see what they're talking about. Even with the spoilers, I don't care. I was gonna watch it anyway. And yeah, I picked up on I like that I heard the commentaries first because then I knew what to look for. I was prepared. And the symbolism in there, and I thought it was extremely well done. And actually want to go see it again. I don't consider it a vampire movie. I don't call them really. I'll usually say, oh, I don't do vampire movies. I stay away from that stuff. But this one is just different. It hits different, and I understood what the message and what they were saying, and there were moments where got I was taken. I was just in there, those scenes when they were singing and dancing and then just made me think about our culture. And I kind of looked around the theater a couple of times because it wasn't completely packed, but some people were like, "Oh yeah, I went in. It was nobody in there." Oh no, there were people in there, and they weren't black people. There was a handful of blacks in there, but it was a bunch of other people. And I kind of was like a little, "What y'all doing in here?" Like they y'all don't belong here.
Were
But
they
I
mostly
just
white?
it was some white and some other nationalities. I wouldn't really, I couldn't
Mm.
tell. There was one sitting in my row that they weren't white, but I don't know. I couldn't tell what nationality they were, but they weren't black. And then it was like looked like some kid, and I'm thinking, why are you playing on your phone and you probably watching this? So I was just like, they don't get it. I think they were probably just wanting to see a vampire movie or wanting to see Michael B. Jordan. So, but yeah, oh my God, I have no words. It just seemed to fit because when you think about these bloodsuckers, I'm like, that's exactly what they do. And it's like, you got to be careful just letting one into your circle because you don't know what they got under their sleeve. You just can't trust them. And I'm not trying to say that about every last one of them. Okay, yeah, mind you, there might be some good ones, but that don't mean they should come to the cookout. Sorry. It's just some things we just need to keep for ourselves because they never want to see us have anything. And when you think about how It's like, why y'all gotta be? And the thing that really got me was when dude was like, y'all got all these other places you can go to. Y'all got so many other white places. What do you want to come here for? Like they always want to be in our business. And then when he did the whole comment about, oh, they was gonna come and kill y'all anyways. And it's like, and they do. That's what they do. They act like they're giving you something just so they can come and destroy it or take it. It's like they don't want to see us have nothing. And the way it ended, um I'm just looking at like it's some stuff that there's some things that we just may have to do just to protect ourselves or just to keep people from destroying us from within. It's just some people just gonna have to be cut off. When, like that one scene when that Asian lady, I was like, they should have pushed her ass out the door. Go be with your husband and go try to save your own daughter. But they were trying to protect her too. We got to stop trying to protect everybody else and just protect ourselves.
I wanted to piggyback off of something Stacy said about how somebody was sitting there playing on their phone, and I think what you got from that is they just didn't know what was going on. I'm starting to think that we're getting so codified that we have hidden messages that only we understand, or just a few people understand what's going on, and it's going over everybody else's head. So that was really good that you brought that up. He didn't even know what he was looking at.
Exactly. And I took exactly that from it. I was like, they don't even know. They just in here just like, oh, it's just a little entertainment movie. And you know what? And I'm kind of glad about that too, because I'm like, you know what? The way I think recently, I don't know if it was on Tariq's space or it might have been one of these spaces, but no, I think it was Professor, one of your spaces where you're talking about they hide things in plain sight.
Oh
And
yeah,
I think that maybe are we getting on code like that where we can do that
it's
too?
more power.
We
It's more
Right,
powerful than that,
right.
Stacy. Like I
uh-huh.
said in the beginning of this space, we're linked back to an ancient civilization where before Europeans existed. Um, um, Proto Egyptian, maybe Atlantean. Atlantean is not confirmed, so I'm not going to say that like it's fact. But anyway, there's a PhD, an English guy named Rupert Sheldrake, and he's a psychologist. He's doing studies on telekinesis. No, telepathy, not telekinesis, telepathy, like the ability. The saying was back before we fell out of grace, before we got separated, when we were unified with the God one, we could communicate through thought. Every FBI, every black person in this stage has had an experience where they thought about somebody and they called them. Everybody. Or you were walking and you felt like somebody was looking at you and you looked and somebody was looking at you. Well, Rupert Sheldrake did research on that, scientific empirical research, and he showed that telekinesis is telepathy. I'm sorry. I'll get them mixed up. Telepathy is real. Like he did studies, and it was a 30% success rate. He would basically give people have 30 test subjects and give them a name of somebody to think about, and they all thought about him, and 30% of the person they thought about called him. I did it in one of my classrooms one time. I
Yo,
said,
Professor,
hold on one second.
I got the
Go ahead.
I got the weigh in on that shit right.
Go ahead quickly. Go ahead, bro. You had a quick comment. Did my phone mess up? Can y'all hear me?
I can hear
Yes.
you. I heard somebody saying they needed to weigh in, and I'm waiting for them to
Mm-hmm.
say something too.
Yeah, yeah,
Catton.
yeah. My bad. I double muted. Um, yeah, I was gonna say, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, bro, I literally had three things that was in my fucking head, literally. And I look at my phone, it's just there. I'm just like, what? No, no way, no shit.
It's
And
real.
there, yes, and there was one time, I was just like, I gotta call my wife, and then boom, she called me. I'm just like, oh shit, this shit that's
we
crazy. She said,
we know it's
you know,
real. We know it's real, and Rupert Sheldrake proved it. He has a book called Morphic Resonance where it talks about that in depth. Well, the reason why I brought that up is when we were closer in tune to the universe and close to the God, and closer in tune to the God one, to the all, we could communicate like that, according to scholars like Rupert Sheldrake. And how this relates to what we were just talking about is Nikki is right. We're starting to come back to ourselves. We're getting out of this fucking confusion created by Ptolemy One Laggy with mixed up religions, and I'm not dissing religions, but I am dissing these versions of books that's been scrambled and turned to weapons against us, where the message is reversed. A celebration of life turns into a celebration of death. Really? And we buy this? Well, we're getting out, we're stepping out of that, and we're stepping into ourselves, and our vibration is raising. And like you and Nikki just said, we're starting to communicate, and other people don't know what the fuck. It's just clear as day to us, but other people don't know what we're talking about. That phone thing you talked about, Stacy, I see in spaces all the time. We're talking on spaces, and a member of the dominant society or an outsider comes in and joins us, and they don't know what we're talking about. And I'm like, damn, we're not being sophisticated. What oh, you don't know? So yeah, our vibration is raising. Yeah.
And what's even crazier is when you're thinking about somebody and they show up, not just to call you, they actually, you see them, you run into them like maybe a few days or a week later, and you haven't seen this person in years. And
Right.
and something just triggers and they're on your mind. And then all of a sudden you run into them and you're like, oh my God, I was just thinking about you the other day.
Let
Or
me tell you what
Crazy.
happened,
go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Stacy. My great grandmother's sister, she used to come up, I think it was from Michigan all the time to visit us. Well, not all the time, only on the holidays, but she was super sweet. She always brought little manicure kits for me and my sister. She was very nice. She had no kids. So I barely saw this woman. One morning in the middle of the night, I woke up thinking about this woman who I would only see like every few holidays. And I just happened to ask my mom about her the next day, and they said, "Oh, great auntie, I forgot her name. She died out of the blue. I didn't know when my grandmother died. I just start thinking about her. It's amazing. But go ahead.
Oh,
Oh, I can land right there. I'm done. But oh my gosh, you guys, thank y'all so
and
much.
Stacy, keep staying tuned. We're gonna have a space on morphic
Mhm.
resonance probably tomorrow because I got my lady getting my butt. We're gonna have to end pretty shortly. But
Okay.
what I wanted to say is, y'all know another way where y'all know of morphic resonance is danger. How many countless stories has it been of somebody saying, "I needed," they had felt like they needed to leave, and something happened. Ladies and gentlemen, when I finished high school and start partying in 2001 or 2000, I think it was 2002. Y'all can look this up, it's on the internet. um I just finished high school, and one of my buddies, one of my white friends, was like, Big Al, like, come Big Al, like, Big Al, let's go to a rave. And I was like, what's a rave? I had heard about them, but we didn't, black people didn't really go to them. So I was like, man, I want to check this out. So I had the car, and we drove from Birmingham to Atlanta. That's 2 hours to go to a rave. It was a rave of the century, and it held in an abandoned church. Now I felt some type of way about that, but it was girls there, so I was going. So we went to this rave in Atlanta in 2000. I can't remember if it was 20. It was 2001 or 2002. It was around in there. But we went there and we were kicking it with girls, and he did some ecstasy or something, and was like off by himself doing whatever. And I was up under the stairs. I was drinking on something, talking to some girls up under like some stairs. It was a bartender up under the stairs. And I'm just talking, having a good time. And all of a sudden, I can't explain it, but some said, leave. And I kept trying to ignore it and sip on my drink. And it was just like, man, get the fuck out of here. And I started tripping. I called my homeboy. I was like, man, let's fucking go. He's like, no, man, let's stay. I'm having a great time. I was like, no, man, I got the car. Like, you gonna find a ride back to Birmingham. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I left when maybe I shouldn't have left because I had a little something to drink. You know what I'm saying? But I left. And me and my buddy fell out over that shit. Like, got in a fight on my way back to Birmingham. Well, man, check this shit out. He called me the next morning and was like, Big Al, you heard the fucking, when we left, y'all, right when we left, the building collapsed. And you know what fell? Those goddamn stairs I was standing up under. I don't know what told me to leave, but some told me to leave. Yeah.
You know what? I gotta speak on that. I can't believe it. My mom, you, oh God, we're in tune right now. Like for all of us. My mom always says, follow your first mind. You don't know how many times, and she learned that the hard way. She had did something that she didn't follow her first mind. I think she ended up in jail. But but I've always remembered that because um she would always say that, follow your first mind, follow your first mind. If you something don't feel right, don't do it. Let me tell you something. I just one day I just didn't feel like going to work. I just didn't feel like it. Like it was nothing wrong with me. I wasn't sick. I just didn't feel like going. And so I called in. I didn't have nowhere to go. I didn't have nothing else to do. I just didn't feel like I was working at a grocery store at this time. Do you know the next day I went back to work and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you missed it." And I'm like, "What happened?" They said somebody so in that shopping center of the grocery store there was a Wells Fargo bank. Somebody said somebody had robbed that bank and they were pointing the gun around outside. Now, what if I had been outside that day and the person, I can't remember if they fired if they said they fired some shots or not, but I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, and it's so weird because there have been times where I've just had this feeling of either not going somewhere or not doing something or taking a different route and then finding out later that something happened. And like sometimes I'll say, "Oh, I always miss the good stuff." They'd be like, "Oh yeah, you missed it. You weren't here. Something happened, or such and such happened, or this fight broke out, or you were off this particular day when this stuff happened." And I'm like, "Thank God I wasn't there, or thank God I didn't have to be in this space when something happened." There have been multiple times when I feel like same as you, Professor, where something just had like it saved my life, where it's like, man, if I had a just taken off a few seconds earlier, or if I hadn't been late or something had happened, I'm like, dang, that potentially saved my life.
Well,
So you
Stacy,
are
we're gonna
all right.
I'm gonna make that tomorrow's a part of tomorrow's topic. We're gonna jump back to the topic, get a couple more speakers, and we're gonna call it a night. Captain, you had a quick comment.
Yeah, man, I know what you mean, man. That's is real, bro. You know, whether they want to admit it or not, man, it's there, it's real. You know, hell, I had a near-death experience, man. You know, anytime I call it my nigga senses. Anytime my nigga senses get to tingling, yo, I'm getting the hell out of. I'm getting the fuck away from whatever it is. You know, like, hey, yo, my gut feeling say, yo, leave, bro. Time to go. I don't care who there, what's what. If I say, if you came with me, if I tell you to come on, let's go. Your ass don't want to, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to move. Okay, be my guest. That's you. That's your ass. Well, I'm gonna save my ass. You know, because at the end of the day, you know, it's real, bro. People don't believe that shit, but it's real, bro. You know,
Well,
you can call it.
hold that thought and make sure you show up tomorrow because we're gonna talk about that in depth tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that deja vu too. That too.
Oh yeah.
Cause
All right, we're gonna get a couple more speakers. And we're gonna call it a night. We're gonna go to Onyx. Go ahead, Onyx.
Hey, what's up, Alan?
What's up?
I just wanted to talk about this what the other speaker was talking about as far as I think she's a black Hebrew Israelite. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I'm not a black Hebrew Israelite, but there's a lot of stuff that they say that hits close to it's very eerie about certain things. Like for example, um, like whenever they talk about the whole Deuteronomy chapter 28, and they talk about the curses, and this will be a sign of those who are the Israelites. And when you read that, it hits very dang close to home to everything that happens. This happened to us. And then I think
Hmm.
about stuff found in Matthew, how you'll be hated of all nations. I mean, who's hated more than us? I'm just telling you where I'm coming from with this. I mean, I'm not claiming to be a black Hebrew Israelite. I'm just saying I know what I see. And if even when it comes to white society, I mean, when you look at them, they look like they're going extinct. They're dying faster than they're being born. And it's like, it's like judgment across them. So
Now,
a lot
could you
of this stuff,
guys bring this in? Because you guys will say a sentence and then say
okay,
that
I'll bring it in.
there's a lot of things. Because I've looked over their stuff. The bottom line, our genetics don't come from that area. So whatever they were doing over there,
Well, the
they
thing is, when it comes to
are
genetics, people are. I'm sorry. I don't mean to overtalk you. Um, but I was just saying, when it comes to genetics, like people move around continuously. I'm not
not
claiming to
about.
be this.
It's not about. That's not what I meant.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense.
What part doesn't make sense?
They came from a certain area
How many years ago?
historically,
Yeah.
right?
Well, they were namely in that area.
Mm-hmm. And why is it that you can just say, "Oh, they're from all over," and then get away with it? They're not from all over. They came through a certain part of Africa, ended up in the Levant region. Why is Huckleberry putting her thumb down? They
They hold
lit-
on one second.
they
You're saying they
literally
came to a
came from
certain part of
Africa.
Africa and they
They
ended up in the Levant region, which is like Syria, Jordan. Like what's the Levant region? What are
just
those
look
nations
it
that are
up.
there now?
Look it up. It's not that hard.
Well, I did look it up.
It's
I just
a
can't think of them off the
region.
top of my
It's a
head.
region that they were in. Okay. And those people, the Limba tribe, they do share that. And that Ethiopian Falasha group does not share that.
Okay, so it says the Levant region is Cyprus, Syria, Jordan, Israel. Those that's basically the Levant region.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're speaking like as far as genetically, what are the genetic markers that say that the people who are there now are from that region? I don't understand that.
Well, you have to take into account that a lot of other people invaded the region, but that still doesn't change the basic bloodline. And it still doesn't change the fact that we don't have that bloodline at all.
My
It's
question is,
just not there.
no, my question is when it comes to the whole bloodline thing, if people
It's not
are
just about
walking,
bloodlines. You guys, here's another issue. You guys give these scenarios and say this person is part of our group and that person and Mexicans and all these people.
claiming anything, I'm saying as it relates to
Relax,
what we've been
relax. You
through.
can't change your doctrine and take out the parts you like and then present it to me. You have to say what you believe.
I'm a Trinitarian Christian. I've been raised this my entire
Okay,
life. I'm
that's
not.
fine, not you. I'm not asking what you believe. I'm speaking about when a Hebrew Israelite comes up, what they like to do is if they get caught in a lie, then they say, well, I don't believe that stuff about the Mexicans. Well, your collective does. Well, I don't believe in this part of it. And then you just take away the stuff that you get debunked on.
Well, where's the debunking? I'm just trying to figure out exactly
You
as far.
aren't, you're not on a level to understand the debunking.
Well,
That's
I need
really,
you to explain it to me.
let's leave it like that. You're not on a level to understand the debunking.
And brother Onyx, that is not an insult to you. Trust me, because
Yeah,
certain people come up from certain these groups and just do a whole bunch of bad. And I'm not talking about anybody in this room. Actually, I'm talking about certain groups of people
I
babble.
mean, it's not rocket
Right.
science. And
well,
people have proven that they do come from places. Just like people kept saying that there were some Negritos, some tiny statured people over in Taiwan. And it was a persistent myth. They had the little black people. And we were doing the ceremony to the little black people that we killed. They said that, and they had been doing that, we found out, for 1,000 years. And nobody could prove there were little black people over there. They were like, well, they just made that up. They must be crazy. We don't know why they're doing it. But they found a Negrito individual in a cave over there in Taiwan, exactly where they said they were. Okay? So it can be proven. You can't just babble on the stage and say whatever the hell you want. All of these people babbling have been tested to see if they have those markers. Now, we already know what Black American genetics look like, and they don't look like Arabs. They don't look like people that were there before the Arabs. They don't look like any of that. It's actually a big block. That's like one of the places we'll have a Chinese genetic in there before we have an Arab one. We'll have all kind of things in there before we have the Levant region. It's like a blackout, literally. The only time you'll get it is if maybe you have a Fulani ancestor that's a nomad. You would have a better time saying you were Asian and trying to convince me of that. We have more Asian haplogroups than Arab haplogroups.
well, let me ask you this: from the standpoint of what they say, as far as the Black Hebrew Israelites, when they say that we're the real Israelites, do you think that they mean that people who were in West Africa were swept up and taken to slave? No, 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 no. I'm just asking a question.
Well,
That
I'm glad you said
goddamn
that.
word is so hideous.
Well, the word Israelite is a misnomer, and no disrespect. We're just talking about fact. Well, let me say this. First and foremost, we need to back to the scrambling of religions and the spiritual system that became religions. The black man and woman never had a religion. We had spiritual systems. Religions were, according to Dr. John Henry Clark, handmaidens of conquest. By who? Not us, by Europeans. Well, you keep the people keep saying Israelite, and right there, that kind of loses me because if you look in the jumbotron at the picture I put up there, that says the original Holy Trinity. If you click on that, you have a picture of Asar, Osiris, Aset on the right side, and Heru. So that's mother, son, and well, father, son, and mother. That's the Holy Trinity. That was scrambled. So what I'm trying to say is there's a whole lot of truth in the depending on what version of the Bible you're talking about. There's truth because the stories that were stolen, or let me be nice, borrowed, right? But that book, depending on the version you're talking about, was mixed with weaponized ideology with the intent of conquering. According to Dr. Amos Wilson, it creates a contradiction. Contradiction is the way to make you go insane. They know this from studying rats. You create a contradiction in the maze, and the rat fucking goes nuts. And what do you have? You have people fighting each other over things that you can't
No,
verify.
no, let me ask a question. He keeps saying Israelites. Where do the Israelites come from?
Well, I would imagine as far as that region, I would
Okay.
imagine as far as the Levant
So
region, I would imagine
everybody
people.
has the same thing. They came out of different areas. They have different migration patterns, and then they settle in different places, and they branch off from there. Like with the case of the Israelites, they branched off and then they isolated themselves, and that's why you can see their genetics because of the isolation and their marriage habits, the way that they marry. And these things created signatures that you can see. That's why you can, like I said, you can do their DNA and it says Ashkenazi, it says um, Sephardic, and whatever else. And then if you do a deeper study, it shows that Cohen Priestley DNA that they rarely have. The Limba have lots of it. Those people in South Africa, Southern Africa, sorry, those people that live in places in Southern Africa, they have lots of this priestly DNA. And they, in fact, came from the Levant region to Yemen. And because of a natural disaster, now this part is their mythology because they didn't keep proper records, but they came from Yemen to southern Africa because they said because of a like a drought or something like that. They just kept moving south after they had went to Yemen to trade. That's their migration pattern. Now, if anyone else comes up in the future, another African group that says they practice, I think they tested almost everybody on Earth that says they practice Judaism because they kept saying, "Oh, these people in West Africa, they do it." Yeah, they practice Judaism, but they're not ethnically Jewish. So what? Africans are always gobbling up people's religions and loving it. Okay. That's being the religion is not what we're talking about. Ethnically, that religion is what we're speaking about to prove these claims. The only thing I don't like about them is that because the black Americans that want to be Israelites so desperately, another group trying to cling on to another identity that's failed and old and dilapidated, they keep trying to do that. And then when you say, wait a minute, there are people that got tested that do have those genetics, they want to take that away. Oh no, the white man science, the Limba, they're not real Jews. So they want to throw the Limba under the bus in order to boost up their bullshit. And that's what I don't like because the Limba paid their dues. They said, we practice these, we have the same belief systems. We don't eat pork, we marry this certain way, and they took the test and they passed. The other people that had those traditions did not pass. If you consider being Jewish passing, they didn't pass the test. Okay? And no, the Jewish people, the white people, the Jerry Seinfelds of the world, they didn't like them passing that test. They hated that. They tried to cover it up and even say it was a lie, but they did it again. And they still have tons and tons of that priestly DNA. So we know that they do come from that area. We know what their migration patterns were, and we know where they came from. They look just like the other Africans around them, but they have a whole new. Remember, Professor, we were talking about how these African tribes can be right next to each other and have drastically different genetics.
Right, right, right,
This is not 1950s when you can say we was kings and we all came from this one part of Africa in an orderly manner and blah blah blah. We can see that we didn't come from one place in an orderly manner and we don't have anything to do with that area.
right, right. And that's the problem, Wani, is certain people get confused with what we're talking about. We're not arguing, spirituality. We're arguing the tacticality of these religions being co-opted. That's it. We're gonna
Well,
we're gonna get a couple another speaker, and then we'll pick back up tomorrow. It's one almost 1:30 Eastern time.
I
Oh,
mean, I'll look it up, but I do think that as far as the whole limba and the Jewish people now, I don't think these are actual Jews. I just don't. I think these are just basically white
Oh, the
people.
Limba?
Now I'm talking about the Ashkenazi Jews.
Okay, did you
I
hear
mean,
what
I'm
I
gonna have to look
said?
it over some more, but I mean, like the way,
Did you hear
like,
what I said though? I didn't say they had a lot of this priestly DNA. I said they had very little and that the Limba have a lot. They have remnants of their time in the Middle East. They just have remnants.
yeah, and to kind of give you all the clarity you could ask for on it. So if you look at that picture that I put of Aset, which the European changed with his name game to ISIS, on the right side, Asar, which the European with his name game turned to Osiris, and in the middle, Heru, who the European called the hero. Um, the term Israel is not really rooted in history. That's a misnomer. It's Asrael. And what did Asrael stand for? It standed for Asar, Aset, Ra, which is the God one, the creator, Elohim. And it translates to the black sons and daughters of God. So what Wani said makes sense. That pure Limba group are probably related to, if I should guess, related to the people in that to the people of Israel. It was never a place; it was a people. You know.
so one second, I'm curious, like, what's your stance as far as spirituality and God? Because I'm not exactly understanding you guys' position.
Oh, well,
We're not even talking
we're not
about
even
God.
talking
We're
about.
speaking about people's
Yeah.
bloodlines.
I'm saying as
And
far as spirituality, because I'm the thing is, I mean, I when I say Trinity, I'm talking about Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I'm talking about God Triune. I'm not talking about what you're displaying right here as far as that. I mean,
It's
maybe your stance is that's where you're coming
you
from.
must have joined late. We talked about that in the beginning. That
Okay.
according to Dr. Walt Williams in his research, told me one Laggy changed the likeness of the Holy Trinity from God the Mother, God the Father, and God the Child to um, God the Father, who's invisible, the Holy Spirit, which is a feminine aspect of God because Europeans can't deal with femininity in a stance of power, and Heru turns into the Christ. I'm not gonna get into the Jesus story. I'm not. I don't have the book with me, but I know there's a creator. I'm not. I don't have to specify. I don't have to prove it to anybody. I know there is one, but from non-academic reasons, I should say. But from
Well, Europeans, they flip everything around, but I don't think that, what I'm saying, speaks to the Trinity. I don't think that speaks to Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Christ is referred to as the wisdom of God, Spirit of God, Father being the head. So it's like, I mean, people can probably say, okay, well, this is Aru, Sahu, Set. I'm not sure as far as the whole Egyptian stuff. But yeah, I don't see the connection there as far as them being the Trinity.
Well, you can't. Well, you cannot. Well, you have to look at science. The European made religion woo woo and some type of ooh wee woo woo. The creator he deals with physics. The Earth has physics, and if you look at physics, you can't have power without positive and negative. There's no way to have it. Look at a battery. Negative is not negative in the sense of being bad, but negative is female and positive is male. So I think that's what the Egyptians were saying when they said Asar Aset. They probably, I don't know, I wasn't there, but they probably weren't talking about a person. They were talking about the aspects of the creator, a positive, a negative, to create us, the
So they
child.
didn't they actually believe that. I'm not saying that to be funny stuff,
I
but do they
do.
actually believe
Yeah.
in the actual deity?
With no way of knowing. I think that they were, when you say Egyptian priests, they weren't a woo woo walking around, you know, throwing water at people. They were scientists. Priests meant scientists. So what we have to understand is that was science. That wasn't woo woo. Let's go in church and start shouting and run down. It wasn't that. It was science. What the
Well,
science was, I think some people know. I don't know, but the people who know run the world.
well, the thing is, the white society, they've actually touched on everything and they flip it to a weapon. So
Yep.
anything they touch becomes a weapon. So I can't, say throw the baby out with the bathwater just because they come across it and put a white face on it. It doesn't mean it's a false story. Um,
And I'm not here to argue that. I'm just telling
Do
you
you
what.
believe in Noah's Ark story is true?
well, it was a long time ago. The land, it
Yes
was
or
it
no? Do
wasn't
you
six,
believe
7 years.
Noah took all the
Well, I'm trying to
animals?
explain it because if I say yes, then basically you're going to laugh about it. If I say no, then you're like, okay, I got you. So I
It's
mean, it is
really
what it
a
is.
yes or no answer. If you believe the stories in the Bible, it's a yes or no answer.
Well, I'm thoughtful, so I try to give context to it. If this is at the very beginning, basically where the land's connected, then I can see such a situation happening. As far as an area, they're not. I don't think there were 5 billion
Well, the
people there.
lands were not
No.
connected at the time of the Bible, so try again.
What do you mean the time in the Bible? You're talking about the time of
And
Abraham.
we're running out of time, and we weren't going to argue that in the space. But what I will say, I'll say it again. I said it about 3 times. Is the book Holy Canon we talk about is the Bible. Look up the Council at Nicaea in 325 AD. This is not woo woo. This is not speculation. This is hardcore recorded fact. The
Well, that's white people.
the canon of Holy Bible was created, was put together and reassembled with intent of conquering the world. It wasn't put together with intent of saving anybody. It
Well,
was,
white
No.
well,
people
maybe
don't
to
say
saving
that.
Europeans. So what I'm saying, hold on. What I'm saying by that is, according to Dr. Amos Wilson, the book was reassembled in a way to make people kind of argue and fight, and and argue about stuff that you can't prove, when the God that I know, that created me, that created the universe, deals in fact. He deals in science. He don't say believe that there's gravity. Just believe. He says if you fall off a building, you're going to break your leg. There's gravity.
Now,
We're going.
did you say if the world was all together, then you could gather up all the animals?
No, I'm saying that one can wrap their mind around. Okay, if this is
How do
such,
you
if
wrap
you're
your
going way
mind?
back then, Ronnie, can I please answer it?
No. How do you wrap
I'm
your
trying to
mind
answer.
around 8 million species of animals on a
Because I don't think
500
there's 8 million species
and a
of animals. I think
510
animals
foot
evolved.
arc?
I think the animals that we see now today evolved. I don't have that position of okay,
There
we can see what
were
it
those
was.
many. The animals have been here for a long time, way longer than the Bible. How long do you think animals have been here? Some of these animals have been
I
around
think the
millions of
dogs we see
years.
now evolved from wolves. I think there's ancestors when you go down the line when it comes to each animal. I don't think the animals that we see
Still,
today were back then.
sir, yes, they were. They had kangaroos then. You need to
Yeah, that's a
really
fact. You
come
see,
on, man.
you see how it's been
Yeah, we
designed to
can't
make us
have it.
argue about stuff that's
We
fact.
can't
Well,
have
do you
this
believe in
argument. It
evolution?
doesn't even make sense.
Well, do you believe in evolution?
I think things evolve, but that's not the point.
Well,
We
that's what I'm
still
saying. I
have
don't think there's eight
we
million things.
still have millions of animals. We didn't have 500 animals that could fit on an ark.
I never said they did.
Okay, then they couldn't fit on the ark, right?
Ma'am, I don't think that we had 8,500,000, whatever this and that. I think the animals that we see
Okay.
today
Why don't you look
evolved.
it up? What are we talking about?
I mean, I
One,
don't have a problem looking it up. I
how
don't. I
many
don't have
animals
what
did we have?
you.
You want me to look up how many animals were on the earth
Well, you wouldn't know
in one AD?
if I say was it cold two
It's
thousand
still
years
gonna
ago. You
be
couldn't tell me.
millions of animals.
Yeah, actually, they can. People, that's a science, geology, and I guess Marnie's area, anthropology. They have ways of telling. That's the thing. It contradicts with, and again, I'm not trying to attack anybody's religion. I do believe in a creator. I believe in the God one. However, the hard factor here is the Bible was put together 325 AD. Look at the Council of Nicaea by Europeans who left books out. There's a whole book of the Bible that nobody knows. I have it called the Book of Enoch, where you're taught how to make spells and cast spells. They don't tell you that in church. Why? Because the Book of Enoch was rooted in Ethiopia, and it was important for the Europeans to not have any holy group of people in Africa, because they had intent of using people, Africoid people, as slaves. It's a weapon, and it's a hard thing
No,
to say, but
Oh, I agree. The white people. I agree. The white
I have
society use
some
the Bible as a weapon. That's
information.
everything
I
else.
have
Even
some
science. They
I
say that
have
we
some
use that
I
among.
have some information. Now, it's even worse than I thought. So there are more animals before than there are now. There were more
I
animals.
believe that. I
There's
believe that.
8.7 million species today, and 3,000, 4,000 years ago, there were more species. So those are not going to fit on there.
All right,
Eight
ladies and
million.
gentlemen, we're gonna go. We're gonna go ahead and close.
Oh,
It's getting late, and we're gonna close this space. We're gonna pick this argument back up at a
most
later
definitely.
date. I wanted to give Huckleberry closing remarks. Huckleberry, go ahead and quickly land your plane.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna be real quick. I didn't have anything. I've just been thoroughly entertained. But I do want to say that I love all my people. I love all y'all. I thank you for this space. I think it's very constructive that we all come together and we hash these things out. And we come together with our thoughts and our provocation, and we just show each other love and respect, and we get to the bottom of what are the truths, because there have been a lot of lies, there has been a lot of deceptions, and there are a lot of recorded histories that are incorrect. I mean, when we talk about Googling and doing all these things, um, we have to be very careful. So I will just say that I know that we all are well intended and we all want the truth, and that none of us intend to be disrespectful or gaslight. So if I made anyone feel that way, I apologize.
You didn't. You good.
To,
You did. You
okay,
didn't.
great. So anyone in the chat who has a question, I think I read some. Oh, she's a tether. She's a this. She's a that. No, 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 baby. Um, I'm all the way from the soil. I just buried my dad. You know, my dad is from Georgia. Went through Jim Crow, all that. Um, my mom, or her mom, and all that, from Mississippi. So I'm from the soil. Nevertheless, I have a lot of information that at some point, if anyone is ever willing to hear me, I would love to share. And I hope that one day there's a space that we can all share, and not feel like we're coming against each other or attacking each other or not letting each other talk. But I do appreciate your space. I came in uninvited. I saw you on there. I follow you guys because I love and respect you all. And so again, I just want to apologize if I
You
offended
did. You did
anyone.
not. You did not. All right, guys.
Okay,
We're gonna go ahead and
great.
close.
I
I
want to
don't know
know
if
funny.
I don't know if
What you
Tariq's on, but we're gonna go ahead and close. It's late. Nikki, you had any?